I thought I'd put the rear suspension back in the same order that I took it apart as well. So I think the first thing to do is to put the new bump stops on. They're held in with 2 bolts, part numbers SH605051 and I think GHF332 spring washers. So no, they're not a thread, they just needed a push through. Diagonal bolts, and that's a 1/2 inch socket. Right, so that's in. I will just do the other side while I'm at it. The opposite bump stop is on. Wasn't easy. Where the chassis just curved around at the top, you just got to fiddle that one in, but if you put in one nut partially and then the other one, it sort of winds in quite nicely. So both bump stops are done. The next bit I did was the springs, so I'm going to get the front springs on. Well, I'm going to get the springs on at their front mounting. We've pushed new bushes into that front spring, which wasn't easy actually. I just need a little tap with a hammer. And then I'm going to put anti-seize on it. And I've got a GHF334 spring washer and a GF203 nut. Let's put a bit of anti-grease on that. Anti-seize. So I've put a bit of anti-seize on that thread and I'm just going to wind it up. So you don't wind them up fully, you don't torque them up until it's sitting back on its wheels on the floor, and you just leave them a little bit loose. There we go, I'll just do that like that, and I'll pop the other front spring on as well. The opposite spring is just held in with that new bolt, spring washer and nut. I think I remember actually the rear axle hanging on its rubber belts, so I think I'll just pop those on next. So I'll put the new rebound straps on their hangers. They're a bit flimsier than the old ones. I might just see if the old ones are better, but I'll put them on. there and there, because they were really hard to get off when we took the springs off there on. So the next job is to fit the new polyurethane bushes, which come with their own sort of grease, to the shackles. Now I've got the original shackles, which have come up very nicely, and I've got the new ones, which I got just in case, but I think I'm going to use the original ones. So I'm going to put the polyurethane bushes on these shackles, and I've been told that you have to put grease on any part where the polyurethane meets metal. So I'm just going to put the grease on the original ones, I think, first. So I've got the shackle coated in the grease that came with the polyurethane bushes. That goes on the outside. So if I put a bush, ah yes, that sits in the little hollow there. Let's pop that in there, but that completely removed all the grease, so that really isn't going to work. Okay. Oh, there's got a bit of a residue on it. And there's a little bit of grease left in there. Okay, let's have another think about that. There's a very slight lip on the inside of that bush, so I think I'll put a little bit of grease in those patterns and see if that pushes on. This really isn't working, is it? Okay, I'll put the other one on. Well, at least there's a bit of grease between the the bush and the shackle, but yeah, okay, that's really not going to work. So there's a bit of a residue there. Right, so that goes on the outside. And then presumably I need a bit more grease on the inside of that spring eye. I'll do that. So I'll put some grease in that because it's obviously metal. I wonder if that pushes in. Well, that has to push in first, doesn't it? And then presumably the other bush. Pushes on that end. Give that a bit as well. Right, so polyurethane grease wherever it meets metal. that's gone in quite well. Right, oh, that's pushed in nicely. Okay, so I'm going to do the same to the other side. I bet of course now, problem, as I bet there's not enough room for me to put the spring in that eye. Nope, so I need to slacken that off to make it fit in the eye at the top. I'll wangle that in. So by pushing the shackle and the bush back out, you can then grab the back of the spring, push that back in, and then there's my other greased polyurethane bush. Now something tells me I probably should have mounted the axle to that first, but right, I'll wangle that in somehow. Oh, that's pushing in alright. Good. Right. Okay, I'm not sure if that's the right way to do it, but I'll leave those unnutted at the minute. In case I need to drop them back out for the axle. Right, I'll definitely do the other side now. So with this side I've greased up my shackle. I've put on the polyurethane bushes. That goes on the outside. And they just slide in. Nice and easily. It's brilliant. And then these bushes equally get a little bit of grease on the inside. And I'll push them over the shackles. And so that goes in, and then I'm just going to push this polyurethane bush on. There is actually a very slight pattern inside it, so I'm hoping the grease stays in those grooves. That goes on there, and the other one goes on there. And I'll just push them in, and then that'll be done. I'll just leave them again unbolted, because I've got a horrible feeling I might have to put the axle on and lift the whole lot up, but I'll see. Right, so there's a little bit of the grease that came with the polyurethane bushes on the inside because it's against metal, but that's been powder coated, I don't know. That goes on there with a concavity against the bushes. I've put anti-seize on the end of the bush. Sorry, anti-seize on the end of the nut, the shackle bolt. Oh, I think that just screws in there, but it looks a bit big. Looks a bit big. So when you do nuts up, you really want them to, the bolt to stick out a little bit. Let's just see if that tightens up. Okay, so the bolt is adhering through the nut. I don't again want to do that too tight at the minute. That looks alright. I'll just back them off a little bit. Well, I'll just back them off a turn like it suggested. Okay, so I'll fix that probably temporarily, I don't know. I'll just do the same with the other side. It's exactly the same on that side. Concavity against the bushes. A little bit of anti-seize on the end of the bolt. Spring washer. New nut. Oh, so nice putting new nuts on these things. Oh, I was not quite happy there. Yeah. Right, might just have to use a little tap there first. Right, I'm not going to do that, not too tight either. I think that'll do. Back it off a little bit. Right. Okay, so I think now on with the axle mounting on the springs.